it is my fault. So I take that. I will take that on the chin. But I can disagree with how the things go. So they give you a few copies. They give you a prep copy, and then they give you a final copy. And what I did is I read off the prep copy, and usually there aren't a lot of big distinctions between the prep copy and, the final copy. For this one, there was. So, enough where doing pickups, I would still end up just re-recording the entire book. So this is why we're here, because I messed up, and I admit that. And so I am suffering for it. Hi, Erica. I know. When I talked to some of my narrator friends, they were like, well, that's bull. And I was like, yeah, it happens. Don't do what I did, more or less is what I'm saying. Don't do what I did. Double fucking check. Yeah. It's good to see you too. Well, kinda. I'm doing all right. Hanging in there. All right. Chapter 35. Secrets Within. Prince spun a long icicle. Thank you. Good. Sound looks good. Mom's recording. Prince spun a long icicle of ruddy grass between her fingers. Glass, not grass. All right, get yourself together. Prince spun a long icicle of ruddy grass between her fingers. It's fucking glass. Dear God. Oh, I have to. Prince spun a long icicle of ruddy glass between her fingers. Her grin crinkled. Her cheeks. Hold on. My children have all the noise to make. Her grin crinkled her cheeks from ear to ear as her pipe puffed like a merry chimney. You harnessed metal easy enough, she said. Now it's time for... Zoe snorted. It wasn't easy. Prince flicked her wrist and glass shards sliced through the air. Zoe blocked, splinters exploding off her metal palm. Razor-edged glass flakes bouncing off her metal cheeks. Eager skein pulsed beneath her skin. Okay. Yay. All right, we're doing decent. I just need to check something. Skin. All right, cool. Stay for a bedtime story? But you don't have to because the author is correcting a re-recording audiobook. Share your audio clips. That's not at all what's happening. All right. Eager skein pulsed between her skin. What are you... beneath? Come on, brain. Eager skein pulsed beneath her skin. What are you... Prince appeared inside Zoe's guard. Zoe's eyes widened and she swept up a knee by reflex. Never had she felt so slow. Prince's forehead descended, her headbutt crashing into Zoe's chrome nose. Metal crunched. Zoe shot down into the sand, blinking away tears. Her head throbbed with splitting pain, and feebly she tried to move, but the blow had buried her up to her waist. Prince placed a hairy foot on Zoe's head in a posture of absolute triumph. Do not interrupt. Zoe grabbed Prince's foot and yanked. Nothing happened. Prince looked down at her stubby nose. Prince, oh, hold on. There we go. Don't judge me. There we go. Better, closer. Huzzah. Nothing happened. Prince looked down her stubby nose at the growling woman. Hell yeah, that's way better. Prince looked down her stubby nose at the growling woman. I respect your spirit, I do, she said as she pulled Zoe up. There are 2 reasons I could do what I did. The most important is that I outclass you in every way. Strength, speed, intelligence, looks, you name it, and I have it. The second reason is, let me put it to you like this. Let me put it to you like this. What happens when you strike metal? Zoe pinched her nose, vitality wriggling through the cartilage, but it still hurt. We're getting back in the flow. Zoe pinched her nose. Vitality wriggled through the cartilage, but it still hurt. I don't know, she replied, distracted. It bends. It either bends or breaks, or it resists. Yes? Prince waited for Zoe to nod. Yes, metal is strong until something overpowers it. That is why a pure metal build is very rare. It has weaknesses, though insight and dexterity mean you lack flexibility when you approach situations. It is fine being a hammer, but what if you miss the nail? What do you suggest? Usually, people level up from birth with a plan. Either their parents or their sect tells them which elements to incorporate and which techniques to develop. This helps them prepare for the body path they receive at level 10. A proper plan reduces bottlenecks and incompatibilities. You didn't have that luxury, and with your gluttony curse, you never really will. Prince reached Zoe and clicked Zoe's broken nose back into place. Prince reached down and clicked Zoe's broken nose back into place. What's a body path? You saw my accent. You saw. All right, stop, accent, go to bed. You saw Orzit's grass blades. Zoe nodded. Her butt. Who's talking? Quiet, no? Me working. Thank you, baby. All right. Thank you, Katie. Zoe nodded. Her body is based on earthly growth in plants, so her skein and essence are bent toward that purpose. Okay, early. Thank you, computer. I did fuck that up. It was Jamaican. Her body is based on early growth in plants, and so her skein and essence are bent toward that purpose. The dungeon boss, Zazatha, and his disciples practiced Gate of the Storm. By the way, they hate when I go into different accents when I yell at them, but it really helps me improve my accents when I yell at my children. Oh yeah, I'll work. Sorry, all right, let's focus. Let's get back into the book we're supposed to be doing. And his disciples practiced the Gate of the Storm body path, which grants them control over the environment and over transmuting essence into lightning. Zoe pondered over the way the crane tongues could turn water into wisps, and how the dungeon boss threw lightning from his hands. I didn't skip it. Okay. She could have a power like that at some point. Question. Could she have a power like that at some point? Wearing the charm of the Monsoon Fairy had been intoxicating. She hoped she would have a choice in the body paths presented to her, rather than being railroaded by some outside force. What is your body? 10,000 droplets become one. What does that mean? It means I'm a healer. Now, you have mirror essence, but why don't you use it? Now, you have mirror essence, but you don't use it. Why? I can't see it in my status, so... Because you are ignorant. That excuse no longer flies. I want you to harness mirror. Zoe blinked. Now? Prince grinned, a new shard spinning between her fingers. You have 1 minute before I start throwing glass. Zoe reached for her skein. Blood dripped from the hole in Zoe's palm and fell toward the dune, not forward. I have to read what's written. Blood dripped from the hole in Zoe's palm and fell toward the dune. Each drop sank into the pale sand, and Zoe watched them fade with blurry eyes. Similar wounds, deep, precise stabs, marked her thighs, her shoulders, and her stomach. One glass blade had even cut her ear in half. Blood trickled, flowed, slacked the desert's immeasurable thirst. I know. Okay.
Slake.
I don't say that word. Slake. To become slake, crumble. Satisfy, quench. That's what they mean. Slaked. Got it. Hi, Albert. Blood trickled, flowed, slaked the desert's immeasurable thirst. Weariness overwhelmed the pain. The only reason she wasn't unconscious, wasn't dead, was the same reason she was in this sorry state. Let's put a little bit more spunk in that. Hi, Kojo. I hope you're feeling better. The only reason she wasn't unconscious, wasn't dead, was the same reason she was in this sorry state. Prince. The hairy green woman stood above Zoe and focused on a technique. The tide returns. Prince's hair fluffed out like a dog under a hairdryer, her hands spread wide. A falling droplet of blood hung suspended in the air, then reversed, flowing back into Zoe's wounds. Zoe gasped at the warmth, sickening feeling as the technique worked on her body. Okay. I thought I mispronounced. I did not. Oh, I did not. Zoe gasped at the warm, sickening feeling as the technique worked on her body. Her flesh repaired itself at a dazzling speed, and in seconds, she sat completely whole and unharmed. Prince's hair settled. Feel better? Zoe nodded, still too shocked to speak. Prince puffed at her pipe. Hi, Empress. Prince puffed at her pipe. Black smoke dribbled down the spotless sand. I thought it would work, to be honest. It was the trick to sorting out your metal. Maybe if I threw more blades. Enough! Orzitz marched up the dune. You had your fun. If you want to torture my disciple, you can win another bet. Prince set her hands on her hips. I bet I can beat you in a... Prince vanished in a crack of force. Orzitz stood atop the dune, palm outstretched, her entire body trembling with rage. I thought I heard a child knocking. With rage, found my spot. Zoe looked about until she saw a dust puff miles in the distance. Her eyes widened. What was she doing among these monsters? Orzitz exhaled, her body calming. I'm sorry you had to see that. She wrung out her hands. Now, it's time to practice your stances. Mutely, Zoe followed Orzitz back down the riverside. Lily, you're done already? I thought you had more. I thought it was a night thing. Back down to the riverside. Mutely, Zoe followed Orzitz back down to the riverside. Glass blades littered the sand, and they wove their way among them. The palm trees' ragged leaves suddenly made sense to Zoe. A gentle breeze slowly buried the shards as the desert reset itself for the next time the shaft of darkness circled the world. For the rest of the afternoon, Orzitz led her through the stances, and Zoe followed. It became a dance, constantly circling, moving from strike to kick to throw, and repeating. She needed extra focus to avoid the half-buried glass, but Orzitz's sect had developed the grasping vine for such obstacles. Soon, Zoe lost herself in the rhythm as her muscles soaked up the exercise. Orzitz corrected her here and there, but mostly she simply observed. Toward the day's end, Orzitz called for a break. They sat cross-legged as they each had the evening before. Yay! Thank you, Albert. I hope you enjoy them. They sat cross-legged as they had each evening before, and Orzitz scooped out cups of tea from a pot left soaking in the sun. They drank in silence. Okay, it's like the world doesn't want me to work. My cat is howling to her ancestors. Okay, I don't remember the boss one. Orion one is, I had fun with it, but I don't think the author enjoyed it. Like, not my performance, but she had a bunch of changes she wanted to make, so, yeah. They drank in silence. The light nearby tastes almost medicinal on Zoe's tongue. The light hereby taste. That looks like an error. Nope, it's not an error. Okay. Oops. They drank in silence. The light hereby taste almost medicinal on Zoe's tongue. All right, focus. I'm too distracted right now. Get back into it. They drank in silence. The light hereby taste almost medicinal on Zoe's tongue. Prince had not yet returned, and her absence made the camp eerie. Zoe drank and relaxed. She had no thoughts of training or the worm or her allies in another dimension. Only the tea, and her mind became as empty as the desert stretched out in infinite distances around her. Oh, they're going to tag me for that. Only the tea, and her mind became as empty as the desert stretched out in infinite distances around her. They might tag me for distances. We'll see. Orzit spoke first. How often do you reflect on your past mistakes? It took Zoe a minute to bring herself back to a state of mind where she could talk. She set down her tea as she noticed Orzit's seriousness. I suppose I think about my mistakes a lot, maybe too much, but it's the only way I can improve. But do you reflect on your mistakes or merely ruminate? Orzitz nodded at Zoe's silence. Orzitz nodded at Zoe's silence. Shame can be a powerful tool, burning brighter than any praise, but if burned alone, without opening yourself up to other views, the toxicity of the fumes will poison you. Some people run from their shame by charging into conflict. Orzit sipped her tea and let the accusation settle around Zoe's shoulders. Tell me, disciple, about your first battle. Zoe paused halfway to picking up her tea. Restlessness filled her. Skane, responding to some unspoken command. I know, I will get... Skane, responding to some unspoken command, surged, and the metal flushed her skin, faded, bloomed. I said the metal instead of metal. And metal flushed her skin, faded, bloomed. Orzitz rose, Orzitz rose. Orzitz rose, tea still in hand, and gestured for Zoe to rise. Tell me as we walk. Zoe nodded, and they strode along the riverbank. A baboon puffed into view. Oh, Jack's probably in school. Of course, Erica. Zoe nodded, and they strolled along the riverbank. A baboon puffed into view and watched them before flapping away into the sky. My first battle, I don't know if this counts. Let me guess, a schoolyard scramble? Fighting a bully? No. I was 14, which is young for a human, but old enough you think you're old, you know? Different ages for different worlds, but I know what you mean, Orzit said as she gestured for Zoe to continue. I thought I had the world figured out. It was just my mom and I, and she did all right. But I gave her a hard time. I loved her, but that's how kids are. One day, a Friday, I came home after school and she wasn't there. None of her stuff was there. None of my stuff was there. Some things my grandparents left me, things I didn't even realize were valuable until years later, were gone. I was alone in an empty house, and I thought it was my fault. You know, I was at a young age. I was just at an age. I was at an age where the world revolved around me. All right, computer. You know, I was at the age where the world revolved around me, so how couldn't it be my fault? They stopped atop a dune. Far away, across the river, a black pillar slid through the desert. Green fire fell in its wake like aftermath of fireworks. Oh, lunch break. What you eatin'? Green fire fell in its wake like the aftermath of fireworks. Orzit sipped her tea. What did you do? She asked. I ran, Zoe said, and her shoulders sagged under the burden of her words. Nice. Our house was on the edge of town, near the forest, and I ran into the trees. Some kids, neighborhood kids, we built a little fort. Not too far, but far enough you couldn't see the streets. I went there first, but it just made me angry. So I went deeper into the pines, deeper and deeper, until I knew I was lost, but I didn't care. I slept on a pile of leaves. It was summer. Maybe I would have died if it wasn't. I doubt something as simple as cold weather could kill you. Zoe didn't react to the compliment. She spoke like a stone rolling downhill. Wild dogs found me that night. I woke up and it was so dark. Living in the town, I never knew what true darkness was. I woke to growls and then they started biting me. I ran, but it was a forest, all downhill, and I was just a little girl. She stopped and stared out into the distance. They chased me until I fell, rolled to the bottom of a hill, and hit some rocks. Ham mustard packets from the convenience store. Got it. They chased me until I fell. Got it. Rolled to the bottom of a hill and hit some rocks. Might be the first time I really tasted blood. I thought there was a second where I saw the stars through the treetops, through the clouds, and I thought I was safe. But they came down, so much quieter than you think dogs can be. I backed up against a tree, and I didn't even realize I had a rock in my hand until the first dog, my accent, dog. All right, breathe. Dog. We're pronouncing. Yo, Albert, we're all fucking broke these days, okay? None of us got it. Judgment free. I backed up against a tree, and I didn't even realize I had a rock in my hand until the first dog charged me. It was too dark to see anything but the motion. I swung. If I think about it, I still feel that jarring collision right here. Zoe tapped her wrist and elbow. Oops, there's a truck. Ah, I understand. She tapped her wrist and elbow. But it takes more than one hit, and I kept bashing that dog. Okay. All the things. Another attacked me, but only one more. The rock broke against the second skull, and I wrestled it on the ground. Oh my God. My cats are hollow. The rock broke against the second skull, and I wrestled it on the ground. It bit me, and I bit back. I tasted its blood as it died. Sorry? My cat is howling to her ancestors, and it's a little early for that. I tasted its blood as it died. The others didn't attack you? To be honest, there might have only been two. It might have only been one. I don't remember. Hi, LB. To be honest, there might have only been the two. It might have only been one. I don't remember. I kept walking after that, just crying. Crying for my mom, deeper into the forest like the fool I am. Okay, I did say that. She chuckled, wiping away a tear. The funniest thing is, I don't even blame the dogs. I was hungry as well, and a few days later, I found a cave. There were more dogs, and my heart almost stopped in my chest. But these were friendly. Some had collars. The poor things. Their families, some still had collars. Yeah, Albert, I'm using for right now I'm using an app. If you were on Twitch or YouTube, you could see how it highlights when it thinks I said something incorrect and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a teleprompter app. At least this time. I'm hoping it'll, you know, I get a lot of pickups because I do a lot of acting, and sometimes I don't read the words on the screen or on the page. And I'm like, my character will say that. And then they go, yeah, but that's not what's written in the book. But these were friendly. Some still had collars. The poor things. Their families abandoned them, just like mine. What's up? I think I lived with them for 6 months, maybe longer. I can't be sure, until some hikers found me. They sat on the dune and watched driftwood scraps of tools. Got it, got it. You can ask it and I'll get to it as soon as I can. Your question. If it's long, you know. They sat on the dune and watched driftwood, scraps of tools and clothing, leaves and other dungeon debris float down the river. Thank you for sharing that with me, Orzit said. Yes, I often do that. And so I have a lot more pickups than other narrators. Thank you for sharing that with me, Orzit said. I see that you have grown beyond the little girl in the forest, but those memories still shackle you as much as the chains on your back. I know I need to move past it. I need to. No. The past is the soil from which we grow. What is the difference? Money? I like it too. The past is the soil from which we grow. This is the grasping vine. The first step is sunlight that helps us break free of the dark earth. And with each move, each strike, each step, we climb even higher. But the vine never leaves the earth. I think it says ever higher, and I said even higher. Yes, exactly, Albert, exactly. Yaz, you're gonna tell me, Yaz? I said money. Batman can go at night. Ooh. All right, focus. All right, let's get back. Let's get back to it. Yes, you're a mess. Help us break free. A first step, break free of the dark earth. Okay. And with each move, each strike, each step, we climb ever higher. But the vine never leaves the earth. If it did, it would die. She looked away as though contemplating her own advice. Before she smiled. So, Zoe Chambers, are you ready? For what? To face your worm and climb ever higher. My job is fun. Ooh, I could always go for some Chinese. Hi, Heather. The worm lay in chains, baking in the dying sun, its gilded carapace glinting and swollen. It twitched in the sand as it slept, and within it, liquid organs congealed. Fingers, a face, muscles, and bone. Features shifted as the worm's true form stirred beneath the golden shell. Footsteps crunched across the sand, approaching, and the worm rolled over to face the intruders. Its sister and her master. It smiled with gleeful anticipation, and deep in its shelled exterior, a second smile formed on its true face. Soon it would be free, and once it devoured its sister, they would be whole. All right. What the hell? Yes, it is. Oh, so I'm redoing it because I fucked up and read off the prep copy, and there were enough mistakes where the producer was just like, hey, friend, which copy did you read off of? And, yeah. So I have to re-record. Heather, it's not fun. Well, it's aight. It's not what I wanted, but it's aight. Chapter 36. Psychic Turbulence. Prince limped over to where Orzit sat cross-legged under a tattered tree's shade. Damn, tattered tree's shade. Prince limped over to where Orzit sat cross-legged under a tattered tree's shade. Nearby, at the foot of a dune, Zoe bounced on her feet, warming herself up for the coming fight. Ah, okay. I felt like I was the only one because I feel like no one talks about it. Thank you, Heather, for normalizing. All right, sorry. You made me feel better. Zoe bounced on her feet, warming herself up for the coming fight. The dying light gave the world an ashen appearance as a warm breeze blew across the river. Prince gripped the tree and twisted her spine. Vertebrae cracked. She leaned against the trunk. Took me hours to find my pipe. Did you have to hit me so hard? Oh, yeah. Ooh, my chair. You heard my chair creak. Let's go back. She leaned against the trunk. Took me hours to find my pipe. Did you have to hit me so hard? Orzitz continued watching Zoe. I had to hit you hard enough for her to believe it. Zoe almost trusts me. I can feel it. I'll tell her the plan soon. Sure thing. Prince blew sand from her pipe, then packed midnight herbs into the bowl, licked the inky residue from her thumb, and lit the pipe. Can you imagine how much easier your life would have been if you had a technique like that in your heart? I don't think I would have had the guts to use it. You? Yeah, right. I was different before I came here. Heard that before, Prince said as black smoke cascaded from her nostrils. Orzit smiled. The worm breathed as the binding chains vanished. Long indentations marked its carapace where the shackles had dug. It twitched, squirmed, and grinned. Barbed antennae sniffed the air for skein, traced out the link between the parasite and host. Barbed antennae sniffed the air for skein, traced out the link between parasite and host. Sister stood so close, the body growing inside. The second self, true self, flexed corded muscles and grinned with human teeth. Soon, two would be one. Minute by minute, the sky faded to darkness, as though running low on power. The wind strengthened the dark, blowing downriver a scent of bloated carrion. Ooh, that's not it. You want to know how I know? Because I had to look it up last book.
Carrion.
Carrion. Carrion. The wind strengthened with the dark, blowing downriver a scent of bloated carrion. Zoe's nostrils twitched. Insight painting a picture of the bloated, floating corpse as she hopped from foot to foot, trying to stay warm. The wind blew sand on the small dune before her, and minute by minute it grew. She moved through the grasping vine as sand stung her cheeks. Prince will stop the worm if it is too dangerous, Orzit's voice came to her ear. But if you want to avoid pain and mutilation, you must use what I have taught you. Zoe reached through her skein for the mirror essence, but her willpower passed straight through like a scalpel through water. She couldn't even tell if it was really there or not. Glaring at the worm, she drew on her metal. I'm ready. Sand pinged against her skin, blushed silver. Okay. Sand pinged away as her skin blushed silver. The wind flagged for a second as the sky bruised, before it screamed, a dark curtain of grit sweeping past Zoe. But she kept her gaze open as metal crept across her eyeballs and smiled, ready for anything. The dune exploded. A wave of sand blasted toward her, blocking everything from view. She braced herself. The worm burst through the barrier, its jaws gnashing as it dove for Zoe. She stepped to the side in the first move of the grasping vine. The worm missed her by mere inches. I put Mir in. Bye-bye. You're probably already gone, but love you. The worm missed her by inches and crashed into the sand as she spun and slammed her kick. I said slam kicked. The worm missed her by... Stop putting Mir in it. The worm missed her by inches and crashed into the sand as she spun and slammed her kick into the worm's flank. A meaty whack sounded in the howling sandstorm. Bristled antennae flailed and twitched, and the worm wriggled, thrusting its barbed spears toward Zoe. As each thrust came toward her, she stepped, avoiding by inches, barbs glancing off her metal skin, always stepping closer. The worm reared up to deliver. I didn't have to say it like that.
Mom,
Yes, baby.
when I played Minecraft, I couldn't move and I logged off.
Okay.
So I clicked Minecraft again.
Is it working?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
It's just a little laggy.
It's just a little laggy? Okay. Always stepping closer. Okay, found it. The worm reared up to deliver a powerful overhead blow, but Zoe was already in place. Her fist struck the worm's underbelly with devastating force, and her steel knuckles cracked the gilded. Dear brain.
Gilded.
I know, Google. Her fist struck the worm's underbelly with devastating force, and her steel knuckles cracked the gilded carapace. Translucent blood-streaked liquid flowed down her wrist and left behind rivers of rust. Blech. All right. Translucent, blood-streaked liquid flowed down her wrist and left behind rivers of rust. Zoe's eyes widened. She pulled her hand free and, fighting the urge to leap away, sidestepped the worm's grasping mandibles, sending her knee into its side. Carapace cracked under her blow. More fluid washed onto her, rust blooming on her knee. She grimaced at the itching sensation and forced herself to step into a follow-up punch. But the worm twisted and leaped into a whirling sandstorm, and she lost sight of the target. I said into, it's into the. But the worm twisted and leaped into the whirling sandstorm, and she lost sight of her target. The sky neared total darkness as sand flickered around them. Flicked. The sky neared total darkness as sand flicked around them. Oh, right. Sister shows no mercy. The unseen worm, all right. The unseen worm said with its overlapping voices. Zoe turned, following the childlike giggle. Following the childlike giggling. Oh, that's right. I remember. It's kind of gross. Following the childlike giggling, a shadow moved. Zoe readied herself, but the shadow faded, giggling. Sparks flew as she ground her teeth. The worm was toying with her. Not for long. Zoe crouched, toes flexing in the sand, and she charged. It was harder to move like this, her flesh flooded with metal and half her might stolen. But power exploded down the steel fibers in her muscles. She felt like a tank picking up speed. She felt like a tank picking up speed, and she charged toward the densest point of shadow where she hoped the worm lurked. Heartbeat pounding in her ears, howling wind scraping flakes of rust from her forearm and knee, she roared. Oh, I said flakes instead of flaked. Got it, computer. You're right. Heartbeat pounding in her ears, howling wind scraping flaked rust from her forearm and knee, she roared. The shadow vanished as blue lightning played along the worm's antennae, its face horribly cherubic. We're double checking. 'Cause I'm smart.
Cherubic.
Cherubic. Its face horribly cherubic. No mercy for my sister, it sang. Lightning blasted toward her, but Zoe was ready for this. The first time the lightning had surprised her, but now she braced herself. She was fully metal. Dodging would require far more dexterity than she could access, though her skein flexed as it begged burning. Though her skein flaked as it burned, begged to be burned. Hi, words are hard. Words are hard. Though her skein flaked as it begged to be burned. One more time. Though her skein flexed as it begged to burn. Her 2 feet grounded, she extended a fist to punch the lightning. The rust on her fist disintegrated. In a fraction of a heartbeat, I said all that. Sometimes we go too fast. The rust on her fist disintegrated. In a fraction of a heartbeat, lightning coursed through her and flowed straight into the ground. She exhaled and flexed her fingers, the tips glowing a dull red. The pain was excruciating, but it faded as her skin cooled. She grinned. Lightning struck her again and again. She weathered each bolt, her guard stance diverting the power into the ground, and left footprints in the glass as she advanced. Her skin glowed red with the splattering of... I said the splattering. Her skin glowed red with a splattering of brighter orange and a searing pain, even as it faded with the cool wind. Sand stuck to her, melting into glass, cooling, cracking as she advanced. Okay. Even as it faded in the cool wind, sand stuck to her. Come on. Sand stuck to her, melting into glass, cooling, cracking as she advanced. It had been so much easier when she possessed the charm of the monsoon fairy. The worm twisted out of the obscuring sandstorm. The worm twisted out of the obscuring sandstorm as lightning flashed, leaving trails of burning glass behind. It stabbed at Zoe, who stepped through the grasping. All right, brain. It stabbed at Zoe, who stepped through the grasping vine, drawing close. Her pace was sluggish, the essence in her own flesh like leaden boots, flailing antennae. Dear God. Okay, so I did skip a word. Thank you, computer. But her pace was sluggish, the essence in her flesh like leaden boots. Flailing antennae swept her knee, and she buckled. She caught herself from falling as steam spilled from her groaning lips. The worm reared, lightning cracking along its raised spheres. Spears, not spears. The worm reared, lightning crackling along its raised spears. Her skein stuttered. Metal skin flashed dark brown as ruddy metal became burned in bubbling skin. Sand stung the wounds. Zoe screamed, bit off the pain, then forced her metal sheath to reform, harder than ever, thicker, her willpower bent to one purpose. Hold on, truck. Oh my God, we fucking hate it, Alicia. Grasp. Gasp is another one. Her willpower bent to one purpose. She dashed forward, aiming at the gash in the worm's underbelly. Fluid still leaked from the opening, and she kicked with all her strength. A hand thrust out of the worm's wound. Skin the texture of living mirror. It extended a palm and stopped Zoe's foot. There was no harsh rebound. It was as though her foot had come to a resting against. She's like, claro que? It was as though her foot had come to rest against a stuffed pillow. The sandstorm hushed. I said the pillow instead of a pillow. They might tag me for that. Let me go back. It was as though her foot had come to rest against a stuffed pillow. The sandstorm hushed, though the wind continued spiraling, stinking of rot. Force speared from the mirrored palm and into Zoe's fist. Her own blow returned in double. She flew backward, metal wrist warping and rolled through the sand, limbs heavy and tired, skin flickering between metal and flesh. She couldn't sustain her skein. The worm slithered closer to Zoe, rolled over but failed to stand. The worm slithered closer to... Oh, that's why it didn't make sense, because I missed a whole word. The worm slithered closer as Zoe rolled over but failed to stand. The mirrored hand waved as an arm slipped back into the healing wound. Gross. The mirrored hand waved as the arm slipped back into the healing wound, and the split carapace closed. Zoe forced herself up as the worm came closer. She stepped to the side, punched, and the barbed antennae thrust through her gut. Zoe gripped the wound, tried to hold the antennae that speared her still, but the worm tossed her up. She slid free and tumbled into the air. Lightning struck her, and she hit the dune slope, unconscious by the time she stumbled to the bottom, burned and bleeding. Damn, this worm has been kicking her ass. Lightning struck her, and she hit the dune slope, unconscious by the time she tumbled to the bottom, burned and bleeding. Orzis woke Zoe, gently, by wafting tea fumes toward her nose. Zoe stirred. Let's leave a little bit more space for that. Orzis woke Zoe, gently, by wafting tea fumes toward her nose. Zoe stirred on the soft blanket laid out over pillowy sand. I failed, she said. You did better, Orzitz responded. Zoe threw an intact hand over intact eyes to hide from the morning's flat light. She felt finer than fine, but the memory of the impalement sat cold in her guts. She felt finer than fine, but the memory of impalement sat cold in her guts. I would have died without your help. Which is why we helped. Orzit sipped her tea. You are level 8. The worm is level 8, but you are fighting with half your resources. Be proud you lasted as long as you did. It is all thanks to your commitment to my teachings. Zoe sat up. She expected her fingers to tremble as she picked up the tea Orzit set down for her, but hers were already steady surgeon's hands. Zoe sat up. She expected her fingers to tremble as she picked up the tea Orzit set down for her, but hers were the steady surgeon's hands she'd always had. Strange, the disconnection between body and mind. I said disconnection instead of disconnect. Strange, the disconnect between body and mind. She blew her steaming tea through charred lips, sipped, and noticed her reflection in the teacup staring back at her. I definitely said charred instead of scarred. Thanks, computer. She blew her steaming tea through scarred lips, sipped, and noticed her reflection in the teacup staring back at her. What was the mirrored hand? She asked Orzitz. The worm took your essence. You had metal, mirror, sound, blood, and faith. But now you only have metal and sound. The parasite took the mirror, faith, and blood, leaving you with the metal and sound. Rude. Leaving you the metal and sound. If those essences were stolen, can I even harness them? Can I even harness them? You think Prince was looking for an excuse to hurt you? Wasn't she? Orzitz wiggled her hand in the air. Was just looking. Let's take a sippy sip because my mouth is dry. I can make it wet for you. I'm not well. You think Prince was just looking for an excuse to hurt you? Wasn't she? Orzitz wiggled her hand in the air. Those essences exist inside the worm, but the two of you are linked. Once you are whole, it will be easier to draw on mirror, and practicing now will only help. Okay. Looks like a truck went by. But the two of you are linked. Once you are whole, it will be easier to draw on mirror, and practicing now will only help. Zoe sipped the bitter tea. I want to fight the worm again. And you will, but I should warn you, it will be stronger. How? Come. Zoe rose and followed Orzitz away from the camp, toward the dune where the worm rested in chains. Sand coated its slumbering body. Orzitz rubbed her fingers in the air. Can you feel that? Zoe reached out. No. When two beings fight each other, they create psychic turbulence. This turbulence is ethereal. They generate. Thanks, brain. They generate psychic turbulence. This turbulence is ethereal. If your insight becomes high enough, you might notice its strange, cloying presence. It sticks to those who... Cloying. All right. I love how my brain's like, are you sure? I'm not sure.
Cloying.
Cloying. If your insight becomes high enough, you might notice its strange, cloying presence. It sticks to those who generate it, and whoever wins the fight will collect more. The more each fighter puts of themselves into the fight, the more turbulence they generate. What if they aren't the same level? When you are low level and still learning, you cannot help but put your all into every attack. When you are higher level, you learn restraint. But single high-level technique can provide a wealth of experience to an opponent. Ooh. Okay. Orzit smiled. Should they survive. So, killing isn't necessary for leveling up? It is not. But it is the Crimson Armada's truth that violence is necessary, and killing is encouraged. Zoe nodded as she mused on this. Her words had swept up in such a system. I know. Her world had been swept up in such a system. How can I use this turbulence? She asked. Orzitz nodded approval at Zoe's pragmatism. Pragmatism. Don't sound weird.
Pragmatism.
It is pragmatism.
Pragmatism.
Thank you. Orzitz nodded approval at Zoe's pragmatism. Don't do that.
Pragmatism.
Orzitz nodded approval at Zoe's pragmatism. On its own, it's useless, but there are two ways to make it useful. The first, as you will know, is by landing the death blow. Killing your opponent catalyzes a psychic turbulence into death energy. It fills you with the cold rush and pushes you toward your next level. Killing your opponent catalyzes the psychic turbulence into energy death. Death energy. Killing your opponent catalyzes the psychic turbulence into death energy. It fills you with a cold rush and pushes you toward your next level. And the other way? Meditation. By letting your experiences wash over you, you can integrate the knowledge with the psychic turbulence within. By letting your experiences wash over you, you can integrate the knowledge within the psychic turbulence, just as you would integrate an element on leveling up. This method is slower, but it grants an instant reward. Zoe stared at the pulsating worm. Zoe stared at the pulsating worm, her tea forgotten. This thing was meditating? What instant reward? By meditating, you push your level up a fraction, a minuscule amount, but still you push it up. Through this method, one can train and level up without killing opponents. Orzitz pointed back toward the camp. Go find a place to sit and reflect on your fights with the worm. Go find a space to sit and reflect on your fights with the worm. Let the memories wash over you and soak up the enlightenment. The worm gained more turbulence than you, but that doesn't mean you cannot gain any. Did I do conjugations? I definitely said doesn't instead of do not. The worm gained more turbulence than you, but that does not mean you cannot gain any. You have the day to meditate, and when the sky dims, I'll collect you for your next duel. Zoe found an old pillar, half emerging from a dune, and hopped up to the top. Hopped up to the top. half emerging from a dune, and hopped up to the top. She sat cross-legged in her approximation of what deep meditation should look like and closed her eyes. She focused on her breathing, turned her attention to what she imagined was the psychic turbulence, and inhaled. It flowed into her as I hate this word. Ephemeral. Oh.
Ephemeral.
It's ephemeral. That's right. Femoral artery. Ephemeral. It flowed into her as ephemeral as an idea. Shivers ran down her body, and she tried to clear her mind, but again and again, she saw that mirrored hand thrust out, an open palm rejecting her last attack. Everything reflected at her. She hurt herself by attacking, but what other option did she have? She hurt herself by attacking, but what other option did she have? The worm stole from her. It wanted to kill her, consume her. Hey, love. My mods aren't here, otherwise I would say go to narratorsroadmap.com, and that will help you get started. If she didn't fight back, she would cease. But why would it harness the essence that eluded her? But why could it harness the essence that eluded her? Over and over, this point refuted her. Why could this parasite do what she could not? Sand piled up around her legs. She focused on the fight, reliving each blow, her insight capturing the memory, but denying her understanding to step forward. My lips got stuck. But denying the understanding to step beyond. Footsteps crunched across the sand. It's time. Zoe opened her eyes to a dimming sky. She blinked and unfolded herself, vitality melting the stiffness from her muscles. I didn't realize I sat here for so long. Orzid smiled. Then it was successful, I hope? Come. It is time to face the worm again. Zoe nodded, feeling confidence for the first time in a while. I'll give my kids another hour before they have to go to bed. One hour. Chapter 37. Tutorial Zone. Oh, right. This is Ben's chapter. Okay. We're on a side quest. Oh, throat burps. So, if you weren't here from the beginning, Ben left Zoe, fucked up Zoe's business, grabbed all the money, left with the secretary, and went off to Australia. That's why Zoe was on the flight to go to Australia, because she was like, I'm gonna find him. Do what? I don't know. So now you get one chapter of Ben. Giggity. You also get the background as to what happens when people... Oh, this isn't the chapter. Maybe in book 2, but that doesn't happen in this book. So, but then in this chapter, you also get to hear about what happened to the people who actually made it into the tutorial. So, in the beginning, when the system took over, you could either join the tutorial, and if you didn't join fast enough, you were just asked out and thrown into the world. Excuse me. Oh, okay. My throat decided to burp. Ben leaned against the metal barricades that encircled the sacrificial pit. He leaned hard, sweat dripping from his forehead as his knees shook. There was no wind to cool him. Never any wind in the tutorial zone. I know, they're going to tag me for not putting the D on wind. Never any wind in the tutorial zone, just as the light never changed. The false sun blazed in the false sky as hot as ever. Buildings loomed behind him, the schooling towers, smoke street skyscrapers ringing the pit like teeth. A quest blinked in his left-hand vision. Thank you for the rose. A quest blinked in his left-hand vision, telling him to make his way to room A22 of Learning Tower 23D. He had 1 hour to get to class and complete the quest. But before he went, he had to watch. He had to witness the culling. He owed Mandy that much. It was the 3rd day, and, as promised when they first arrived in the tutorial zone, the 1% who made the least progress were eliminated, killed, fed to the tutorial dimension in order to maintain this pocket world. Thanks. And that's okay. I'm totally okay if you fall asleep. I will take that compliment and thank you for the roses. 150,000 people in the colossal spiral around the angular pillar in the pit's center. I'm sorry. Did I not say those words? Where's Jack? Cool. No, I said all that. I said tutorial. All right. No, that's fine. The computer's just being the computer. Okay. $150,000 people in a colossal spiral around the angular pillar in the pit's center, their ranks corralled by the Crimson Armada's armed elite. They should be screaming. It's armored elite. Got it. Hi, Ashley. Their ranks corralled by the Crimson Armada's armed elite. They should be screaming, charging the guards, anything to protest their deaths. Charging at the guards, you are right. Did I not say armored? Am I pronouncing that wrong, or the computer is just wrong? Computer's wrong.
You said armor.
I just said it, I just played it back. I said armed instead of armored. Armored elite, not armed elite. I didn't have to do that. Their ranks corralled by the Crimson Armada's armored elite. They should be screaming, charging at the guards, anything to protest their deaths. But an overwhelming technique kept them compliant. The scene made him sick, but the scale numbered him. Ben was not numbed him. But the scale numbed him. Ben was not alone. Wives, husbands, parents, children, and friends all leaned against the barricade and watched as someone they knew stumbled toward the bladed tree. They wept and gnashed their teeth, but even on the pit's outskirts, that subtle technique stilled their rage. "Save it for yourself," whispered the technique, "and for your classes." Ben ignored the voice as he searched. Somewhere in that crowd, shuffling forward a few feet at a time, Mandy approached her death. He tried to find her, but the distance was too great. Oh, okay, you knew I was gonna say something, Ashley. Okay. He tried to find her, but the distance was too great, the sea of faces becoming a blur. He wiped away tears and forced himself to keep watching. Someone should remember this, even if it was him. But the gesture's nobility didn't erase the nagging guilt. He should be in that crowd, but instead it was Mandy. Yesterday, the assignment in the learning tower had been to kill boglings. Too many Ashleys. Yesterday, the assignment in the learning tower had been to kill boglings. They'd been split into pairs. 2 students received a cage of 4 limp, bloated creatures. Yes, Mandy is the secretary. Yup. So, she got hers. But we all know Ben is probably gonna have to wait until book 2 or 3 to get his. Dogling. Yeah, okay. I did say bogling right. Thank you. This thing was trying to give me ish.
Boggling.
Thank you. They'd been split into pairs, 2 students receiving a cage of 4 limp, bloated creatures. The students could poke through the bars or enter the cage if they desired a greater boost in experience. Some class members craved. Some class members craved death energy's cold rush. These students would never worry about the sacrificial spiral. These students would never worry about the sacrificial spiral. Ben still felt revulsion when he gripped the spear, or the sword, or the axe. He was a doctor, not a dealer of death. But that wasn't true anymore, was it? He'd entered the cage and decapitated the drugged but snarling boglings one by one. I think I stuttered. Yeah, I did. The drugged. He'd entered the cage and decapitated the drugged but snarling boglings one by one. All 4 for himself, taking all the cold death energy, while Mandy watched on with a blank gaze. I guess she didn't want to survive. All 4 for himself, taking all the cold death energy, while Mandy watched on with a blank gaze. That's her fault. While Mandy watched on with a blank gaze. Nobody had said they had to share the boglings, but everyone else in the class did. The experience took him to the top of the class and sent her to the bottom. She knew what he did to her, even before he realized the truth himself. Later, when he tried to apologize, the words couldn't even come out. And why should they? Why waste time lying about an apology to the woman you'd sentenced to death? The spiral before him was smaller now, shockingly so. 150,000 people were so much, too much, but the razor-studded roots embraced handfuls of people every second. It would take hours for the tree to consume them all, but it would happen, and in full view of the learning towers. And in full view of the learning towers. Students need only glance out the window to have a reminder of their fate, should they slack in their lessons. Yeah, it would. There are lessons in the Crimson Armada's nature, in its truth. Conquest. I did say all of that. He hadn't learned that lesson, internalized it long ago. He'd used Zoe for her skill and the money that skill could make. How had she reacted when she found his notes? He could imagine her quiet footsteps as she walked down the hall of the surgery, hoping to confront him. It says of the surgery. He could imagine her quiet footsteps as she walked down the hall of the surgery, hoping to confront him. Would he have been able to talk his way out of that problem? He sighed. His tongue was magic, but not that powerful. Hell hath no fury and all that. The quest to get to class continued blinking. He didn't have much longer. The smell of blood came to him. The smell of cut bone and burned flesh, as overwhelming as any operating room, as any slaughterhouse floor. He detested that smell. He detested that smell didn't make him sick. He detested the smell that didn't make him sick. To him, it had always smelled of money, of the road to success. The quest blinked and he turned away. Time to go to class. Later that day, though it was always day, Ben jogged toward his designated sleeping tower. His powerful body. His powerful body made short work. You can tell it's late. My accent's like short work. We're pronouncing R's tonight. His powerful body made short work of the miles. Trees lined the pavement, providing shade and a sense of wealthy urban life. It reminded him of Manhattan postcards. If there were people in those postcards, they would look like him. Healthy, handsome, and driven. Hell, he looked and felt like a goddamn superhero. No, an actor playing a superhero and reveling in the vice that came from the attention. Today's class had been a stepping stone to something greater. He knew it. The class of 34 had coordinated together to take down a demonic bird. Taller than any human, the bird could hardly fly inside the confines of the classroom, though every wing beat produced blistering heat. Ben had formed a spearhead with the other leading students. Together, they cornered the bird and hacked it to death. A slower student, Ben forgot his name because obviously he's not important. They'd cornered the bird. Together, they'd cornered the bird and hacked it to death. A slow student, Ben forgot the name, had been emoliated.
Immolated.
Nope, it's immolated. That's why we look up words. Immolated. Had been immolated by the molten arterial spray. But Ben had survived. He was level 6 now. An assessor had been present in the class, a woman wearing a cloak of bladed leaves, her head hidden by a helm carved by delicate ruby into the shape of a single staring eye. Of delicate. Thanks for following. Her head hidden by a helm carved of delicate ruby into the shape of a single staring eye. Had her gaze landed on him as blood sizzled and smoked from his hands? It must have. Had she seen his potential? How could she not? He allowed himself the slightest grin, the slightest pride as he jogged through the thronging people making their way to their designated zones. No familiar faces. Not anymore. He'd come to the tutorial space with Mandy, and with 350 million other people. They'd all been given the same choice on day 1. Pet, slave, or warrior. Even thinking about it made him shudder. 1 million people chose pet. 50 million chose slave. The rest selected warrior. It was then that the system had pulled the rug out from under them. Imagine that. Slave, pet, or warrior. Hi, Miss Shelley. The guards had marched the new pets to the sacrificial pit. There, humans had been spayed and neutered like animals, their genitals burned in great piles like refuse. The smoke still stained the towers. There was no wind to clear the lingering pall, and no rain to wash the buildings. No wind, no rain, no night, and no relief from the brutal reality of their imprisonment. They'd thought they were the smart ones. Damn. They'd thought they were the smart ones. Smart ones, heard my accent, smart ones. Thanks, Miss Shelley. I better watch my cleavage because they like to tag me. Stupid. All right, we're breathing. They'd thought they were the smart ones, the lucky ones when they joined the tutorial. The slaves and pets had already been shipped off to other galaxies. Only the warriors remained, and every 3 days their numbers dwindled. On day 30, the tutorial would end. Ben spent every night praying until he fell asleep, praying that he would make it through the end of this nightmare, that he would make it back to Earth. The sleeping zones were a city unto themselves. How else could they fit everyone? How else could they fit everyone? A country's population squeezed into an artificial metropolis, row on row of cubicles stacked high with spiraling staircases. Oh, my chair did not squeak in the middle of that. Thank you, Miss Shelley. Row on row of cubicles stacked high with spiraling staircases leading to each front door. They stood on a perfect grid, 200 cubicles to a block, and all it took was time to find his as he jogged past the moans and groans, desperate pleasure of despondent grief. My child is yelling. Desperate pleasure or despondent grief. Each. Yo, what's going on? Okay. 40 minutes. Desperate pleasure or despondent grief. Each emotion made indistinguishable. Each emotion made indistinguishable by the cement walls. He jogged through the stairs for an hour. Ugh. Whoops. Truck. Okay. He jogged through stairs for an hour before he reached his apartment. His body refused to tire, but he needed the escape of privacy. The surrounding faces, the grim expressions, the hopeless eyes ground away at his sense of achievement. He needed to be alone. So, the sight of his 50th floor's cubicle front door ajar made him pause. Almost made him run back down the spiral staircase to the street, and then onto where? There were guards, Crimson Armada elites who took their responsibility of enforcing peace. Dad? Oh, be your daddy. How you doing? All right. There were guards, Crimson Armada elites who took their responsibility of enforcing peace seriously. There had been no mayhem in the streets, no matter the doomsday scenario the tutorial participants found themselves in. Oh, no matter the... I said it weirdly. If you go back and listen to the flow, it will be weird. No matter the doomsday scenario the tutorial participants found themselves in. But did he want to put himself on the radar like that? But did he want to put himself on their radar after performing so well in class today? Many of those sacrificed, poor Mandy, had gone to the guards in the last 3 days with complaints about their conditions, about the behaviors of others, about anything and everything. Those who complained loudest found themselves in the bottom 1%. Was it correlation or causation? Ben decided not to find out and entered his quarters. It was dark inside the living room, the drawn curtains. It was dark inside his living room. The drawn curtains blocked the constant sun with near-perfect efficiency. High sky with that. The drawn curtains blocked the constant sun with near-perfect efficiency, dark and cool. Normally, he would make his way to the shower and wash away his day before stumbling into bed, where he would pray or weep until he slept. But not today. Voices came from his bedroom. He crept down the narrow hallway, and the voices stopped. So much for stealth. He burst into the room. Someone sat on his bed. He leaped for them, but an iron grip hoisted him out of the air and slammed him onto the wall. Into the wall. Hi, Omi. He leaped for them, but an iron grip hoisted him out of the air and slammed him into the wall. Ben's ribs cracked against the alien plaster, but the wall remained intact. He slumped down on the ground with a familiar voice robbed his bravado. Got it. He slumped down on the ground, and a familiar voice robbed all his bravado. All right, we've got it. Let's play. He slumped down on the ground, and a familiar voice robbed all his bravado. Hello, Benjamin. It's time we discuss your debt. Mr. Biggs sat on Ben's bed. The fat man wore the same black and gray suit he wore when they met 2 years ago. And, just as he had 2 years ago, Giuseppe, his thin and shallow right-hand man, stood with his singlet and slacks and sour odor. All right.
Sallow.
It's sallow. Thank you. My brain was like, that's not right. Giuseppe, his thin and sallow right-hand man, stood with his singlet and slacks and sour odor. Ben's heart sank as Giuseppe slowly closed the door and sealed off the meeting. The room was hardly big enough for one, and the 3 men cramped it beyond belief. Ben sat in the corner. Miraculously, vitality fixed his ribs, but he was under no impression he could fight his way out. Hello. No, let's fix Ben's voice. I think I gave him I know what voice I gave him. Let me double check. Double check. Let's get to Ben. There he is. Yeah, we gave him a snobby voice. Even though I wanted to make him sniveling. The ponytail is gone. Hello, Mr. Biggs, Ben said, smiling with all his Hollywood charm that had gotten him and Zoe the damn loan. What are you talking about, debt? The damn loan. Okay, I did say that. Thank you. You missed the ponytail. It was a magical weave. Technically, kind of. Anyway, yeah, you missed it. What are you talking about, debt? Surely the world ending has cleared my account. I mean... He laughed and hated that he sounded nervous. What's a few million compared to the apocalypse? Giuseppe cracked his knuckles. Let me eat his toes, boss. That'll make him talk. Mr. Briggs. It's Mr. Biggs. Mr. Biggs held up a thick-fingered hand for silence. He didn't smile or scowl, his pudgy face as flat and fish-cold as ever. Benjamin, he pronounced every syllable. Do you know how I found you? Ben blinked. No, he didn't. There were millions in the tutorial city. He knew there must be some people here he knew. Some people he knew here. Thank you. My brain was like, you transposed that. He knew there must be some people he knew here, but how could he find them unless he went door to door? How did you find me? Mr. Biggs sniffed. The air in the room stirred. Pale skein sucked off Ben and toward Mr. Biggs's nostril. Blech. Hold on, I think my kid's having a... Okay. Yeah, I know. I tried not to sing it. It is spelled exactly that. Pale skein sucked off Ben and toward Mr. Biggs's nostrils as he fanned the scent up into his brain, not his nose. As he fanned the scent up into his brain. I can smell your debt. The filthy, sweat-stinking sense of owing someone. You reek of it. For you have taken your whole life without giving back. Now it is time for me to claim what is due. Erica. Now it is time for me to claim what is due in the name of all those you shortchanged. Giuseppe flexed a wry arm and planted and kissed his knuckles. Giuseppe's weird. Giuseppe flexed a wiry arm and planted a kiss on his knuckles. We reached level 10 today, he said. It's quite the experience. Why do you not think... Oh, you can't hear. Got it. Mr. Biggs nodded. Suffice it to say, we have abilities now, Benjamin. Abilities that let us to find people. That let us find people. Abilities that let us find people. That let us get into places we shouldn't be in. He nodded at Giuseppe. And these abilities will only grow. So too our power will grow. He's like, if though, fact so. And these abilities will only grow. So too our power will grow. Power enough to take over the world. His voice. Power enough to take over the world. His flat voice trembled slightly with trepidation. But first, we must survive the tutorial. That is where you come in. Ben swallowed. What can I do? Oop, he's not British. Get out of British mouth. What can I do? Mr. Big sniffed. Work for me. Pay off your debt and servitude. You will find there are perks such as maintaining your position at the top of the class. My network is growing and we can ensure that you never slip below the sacrificial pit. Slip into. All right, cool. My network is growing and we can ensure that you never slip into the sacrificial pit. What would I need to do? For now, simply excel in your classes, help others who work for me, enlist those you think will be assets. Call those. I swear I said enlist. I did say it. Great. Yeah, a little bit, right? And cull those who will get in our way. When we leave the tutorial, the true work will begin. If you found me, Can you find... Ben's heart hammered in his chest. Do you know if Zoe is alive? Mr. Big sniffed. The debt you owe her is more pungent. She is alive, for otherwise the smell would fade. I need to delete some of those commas. Most pungent. The debt you owe her is most pungent. She is alive, for otherwise the smell would fade. Don't worry. We shall find her when we leave, and she shall pay back what she owes me. Let's mean that last line. Don't worry about it. We shall find her when we leave, and she shall pay back what she owes me. Ben frowned. The money. What use are millions in the face of the apocalypse? What use are millions in the face of the apocalypse? No, there are far more uses for people than mere money. What if I say no? Stop giving him a British accent. What if I say no? Mr. Big smiled like a fish smiles, with too many teeth and too little emotion. You could always do the honorable thing. You can continue in the tutorial on your own and hope that you make it to the end. You could even try to stop us right now. Surely you've learned some tricks in your classes. Giuseppe hopped on his feet, eyes bright with a ferret's eagerness to play and to hurt. Ben shook his head. I just wanted to know. He held out his hand. It sounds like a fantastic deal. Sign me up. Oop, that is a child giggling. I don't know how a fish smiles with too much teeth. All right. I don't think I've ever... No. Oh, I heard my daughter at the end of that. Okay. We have to go back a sentence. It sounds like a fantastic deal. Sign me up. Sorry, Zoe, he whispered to his shrinking conscience. But a survivor has to put themselves first, or else they're not a survivor. They're just dead. No, we will never see a fish smile. It is a little weird. All right, we're going to save this. All right. I know that I said I would put my kids to bed after that, but I have like a half hour before I have to put them to bed. Yes, I let them stay up this late because they're going to sleep. They're going to sleep in. Chapter 38, Grave Flower. Prince's rattling chains and oceanic healing techniques herald dark dreams for Zoe. Heralded dark dreams for Zoe. Being a surgeon, she thought she was fine around gore. But seeing her blood soak into the sand, feeling barbed antennae grind against her vertebrae as her legs stopped working, tasting her tongue cooking in her mouth, she relived these moments in her slumber, never ceasing the battle with the worm until woken for the next day's training. Even during the day, child. Even during the day, she felt the worm contemplating their battles and growing in strength. Orzit's calm voice kept Zoe reasonable. The gray-skinned woman's measured guidance through the steps of the grasping vine helped Zoe forget everything except her body's strength. Over tea and fish, she received schooling on her fights, what went wrong and what went right. With each fight, she improved, got closer to destroying the worm. The more carapace she split. The more carapace she split, the more she revealed the slender, mirrored skin being inside. Arms, legs, a female form, but no face. Not yet, but soon. Another routine week passed. Train, eat, fight the worm, sleep off her injuries, and the healing that came after. Dream horrendously, then wake at dawn for more. In this little oasis of hardship, Zoe thrived. Every day, the scent of decay. I love how my mouth gets stuck. Every day, the scent of decay grew stronger on the wind. Pieces of mirror dial corpses floated past the camp, their scales flashing in the light. Some chunks drifted to a stop among the reeds, buzzing with flies and other creatures. Crane tongues leaked feathers as they bobbed along. More flesh rotted into the water. More flesh rotted into the water, and the fish changed. On the 16th day since arriving, they stopped eating the fish. A single drop of healing potion sufficed for meals. Zoe disliked the brevity of the new lunch ritual. Zoe disliked the brevity of the new lunch ritual, but at least they had tea. She focused on her routine. On the 19th day, hunger pangs drove Zoe out into the dark. She hunted down a baboon and roasted its flesh over coals. Orzitz and Pinch declined to join her, and the next day, the heavy meat weighed her down. Sweat poured from her skin while cramps stabbed her with knives. Sweat poured from her skin while cramps stabbed her with knives. The worm took advantage of her sluggishness. Zoe screamed as the worm. Zoe screamed as the worm tore free her arm and gulped it down like a heroin. It's not heroin. Oh, we're not going to listen to the bird sound. It's heron.
Heron.
It's a heron. Can you tell what books I read? Because I was like, that totally says the drug, and it doesn't.
Heron.
Zoe screamed as the worm tore free her arm and gulped it down like a heron swallowing a fish. Prince waited until the worm had bitten down on her other hand before intervening, her chain binding the colossal parasite as Zoe dragged herself to safety. She stared up at a sky the precise shade of gray that meant it would be dark in 2 hours. It would rain green fire tomorrow, the stench of... Stop it. That's a cat. That meant it would be dark in 2 hours. It would rain green fire tomorrow. The stench of wet, decaying meat would only grow stronger. The pain broke through her willpower, and she screamed. Blood stained the sand as a healing technique wrapped around her ruined shoulder, and her flesh knitted like seething worms. As her new arm regrew, Zoe trudged off to meditate, but Orzes stopped her. "You're frustrated." Zoe studied her rejuvenated arm. "I'm fine," she said, flexing her fingers that hadn't existed a minute ago and sighing when nothing happened. Flexing fingers. She said, flexing fingers that hadn't existed a minute ago. She said, flexing fingers that hadn't existed a minute ago and sighing when nothing happened. "But I'm no close to harnessing mirror, if I even can." Closer. Do 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 do. "But I'm no closer to harnessing mirror, if I even can." "Patience." Orzes strolled toward the camp with her hands clasped behind her back. "I want to discuss our escape plans." Zoe hurried to walk beside her. "Every time I bring it up, you rebuke me." "It's silly to say it now, but we had to be sure we could trust you." "I suppose." Zoe thought of Bella and Anton, hopefully still alive in the dungeon, though she realized they must be since only a few hours had passed for them. She trusted them. At least, she trusted Bella. Orzes watched her with curiosity, and Zoe nodded for her master to continue. "When you reach level 10, you will face a choice." Okay, a little trucky truck. "When you reach level 10, you will face a choice." "Like selecting an element to incorporate?" "Yes, but far grander. An entity called the Smith will come for you, and in its forge, you will choose a metaphor of your physical flesh." The metaphor of your physical flesh. "And in its forge, you will choose the metaphor for your physical flesh. This determines the abilities your body can manifest, as well as those you can never use. Your choices for elemental essence become limited. There is beauty to being raw and unformed, but once you hit level 10, and as you progress beyond, your wild beauty will transform into something refined." They walked in silence for some time, passing beyond the camp and out into the dunes. "Prince said people trained their whole lives for this. How will I know what choice to make?" "The Smith is not as cruel as the Crimson Armada's other aspects. Usually, there are no wrong answers." "Usually?" They stopped outside the camp. "Fate brought you to this world, to us, and now I must make a demand of you, Zoe." Zoe placed a hand on Orz's shoulder. "Our first meeting was rough, but you helped me so much since then. How can I repay the debt?" "Let's discuss this over a proper meal." They combed the dunes and gathered up wood that still burned with the green fire of some passing dungeon. When they had enough, they stacked them atop a dune high enough that the wind blew away the scent of death. A glass bead flickered the dying flames to life, and the crackling provided a ragged undertone to their conversation. "It's getting hot in here." and the crackling provided a ragged undertone to their conversation. The sky grew pitch black, and their green fire glowed lonely under the filament. For the first time, Prince offered her pipe to Zoe. It's not filament. Firmament? What does that mean? Let's go.
Firmament.
Firmament. Referring to the vault of heaven or sky. Firmament.
Firmament.
Let's see if my mouth can get it right. The sky grew pitch black, and the green fire glowed lonely under the firmament. For the first time, Prince offered Zoe. First of all, fuck yeah. Prince offered her pipe to Zoe. The dark smoke tasted like deep earth, like shallowing a cave, and as Zoe coughed, the heavy vapors, swallowing. What? My brain is tired. Swallowing a cave, and as Zoe coughed the heavy vapors, Prince patted her back and smiled. Nothing like it, right? Just wait for the side effects. Oh. Nine minutes. Hello, when I said, okay. Nothing like it, right? Just wait for the side effects. Orzes declined the pipe and produced 3 small parcels of thick paper and twine. Inside each parcel was cooked meat, yellow grain, and a seared vegetable resembling a turnip. Zoe salivated. You've had these the whole time? Saved for a special occasion. They ate with their fingers and wiped the mess on the paper wrappings as Orzes explained the plan. When you first incorporated the Mirabelle, you changed the dungeon quest. Most people would never do this because of the scars of gluttony and the danger of incursion. But you did not know, and in your ignorance, you have offered us a lifeline. We received the same update to our quest. Orzes flexed her willpower and shared her quest. Dungeon objective: assist Zoe Chambers in absorbing the remaining fragments. Bell fragments absorbed, 0 of 3. Black Star incursion, 35%. The ethereal voice sounded distant. Let me do that, but make it a little bit more quieter, because the kid's gonna come in and have something to say. There we go. Dungeon objective: assist Zoe Chambers in absorbing the remaining fragments. Bell fragments absorbed, 0 of 3. Black Star incursion, 35%. The ethereal voice sounded distant, and the Black Star's youthful giggle echoed the last statement. All right. And the Black Star's youthful, not youthful. And the Black Star's youthful giggle echoed after the last statement. Ding! Yes, soon it will be playtime. Dear child. Shut up, Omi. Ding! Yes, soon it will be playtime. The 3 women sat on the dune as green fire crackled slowly on the dried wood. 2 different dimensional essences intermingled, neither destroying the other, though both tried. Prince burped. Trench figured you out straight away. A newly integrated world, tick. A metal user who didn't know what they were doing, tick. Someone who would piss off Zazatha enough to be thrown down the pit, tick, tick, tick. She groaned. He's going to be insufferable. Orziz nodded. No living with him after this. Good thing we'll finally be free. Good thing we'll finally be free. I can't wait to put a universe between myself and that musclehead. Nobody we trust on this waste up, Zoe. But how does this relate to me? Zoe asked. All right. I can't wait to go back and reread the chat. Nobody we trust on this wasteland of a world uses metal essence. Prince has explained why it is rare, but it makes it more important that you are but what makes it more important? But what makes it more important is that you started destabilizing the dungeon. You began an incursion and... She glanced at Prince, who nodded. My child is raging over his game. She glanced at Prince, who nodded. We have these. She produced from her mysterious pocket a dull piece of jagged metal, a Mirabelle fragment. Zoe's breath caught in her throat as Gluttony howled. The scars on her lips twitched, and a feral grin that was not her own formed on her face. She reached out eagerly. But Orziz placed it back in her pocket. Not yet, she said with a small shake of her head, yellow hair spilling about yellow eyes. Once you have met the smith and received your body path, then we can level you up to incorporate the Mirabelle fragments. When you have incorporated both of them, the incursion will trigger, and we can use it to return to the Mirabelle dungeon and our universe. Zoe forced her fingers to a fist. Into a fist. Zoe forced her fingers into a fist to stop them from grasping. I understand why you need me to incorporate the fragments. None of you can incorporate the metal. But why do I need to wait until I blah 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 level 10? But why do I need to wait until level 10? Prince passed Zoe the pipe as she spoke. Thank you, brain. I am getting tired. My brain is making really bad mistakes. Hi, Mr. Radio. Prince passed Zoe the pipe as she spoke. A system will spread from person to person, from planet to planet, like a virus of the mind, cloning itself and latching onto their souls. But when two systems meet, sometimes they merge, creating a unified system from the best of both parents. More often, they go to war. The Crimson Armada system met the Black Star system millennia ago, and the whole time they have been fighting each other. The Crimson Armada, and that whole time, not the whole time, and that whole time. And that whole time, they have been fighting each other. The Crimson Armada is ruthless. It has stripped the Black Star down to its last world, down to the last vestiges of its intelligence and attributes. To this last world. We got this. We can punch in here, maybe. It has stripped down the Black Star down to this last world. All right. We just got to redo the sentence. It has stripped down the Black Star down to its I know, I heard you, brain. Let's not transpose. Let's get it done. It has stripped the Black Star down to this last world, down to the last vestiges of its intelligence and attributes. Eventually, it will only exist as metaphysical bones of dungeons, like the fleck of irritant inside. Like the fleck of irritant. Right? Yes.
Irritant.
Thank you, brain. Like the fleck of irritant inside so many pearls. This devouring is constant. The shafts that march across the desert are slowly shrinking. We need more of a space. The shafts that march across the desert are slowly shrinking, but they are not incursions. One can fall down but never climb back up. That's what Trench... Zoe. Thank you, Miss Shelley. That's what Trench was trying to do? Zoe asked with wide eyes. He was trying to jump back out? It will never work, Orziz said as she passed the pipe from Zoe to Princh. The wind died and... Nope. I know, we're getting tired. The wind died and black smoke curled above the green-lit sand. Incursions are true passageways between systems, between realities, but they only exist for a fraction of a second. When it does, we need someone with a technique to stabilize reality so we can use the incursion to escape purgatory. The incursions. All right. How much do I have left? Okay, yeah. All right. I am going to find a good paragraph to stop. Hi, what they say. I am just about to be done. There may be other narrators are on show. I would say hang out with them. But I'm looking for a good paragraph to stop at. We need someone with a technique to stabilize reality so we can use the incursions to escape purgatory. But no one has such an ability. At least, she gave Zoe a pointed look. Not yet. I heard my kids get low. No one, nobody. Quiet. But nobody has such an ability. At least, she gave Zoe a pointed look. Not yet. Zoe raised an eyebrow. You want me to pick a body path to help you escape. But will that help me escape as well? I don't understand the secrecy. Hi, Matthias. But that will help me escape as well. But that will help me, escape as well. I don't understand your secrecy. Pardon. But that will help me escape as well. I don't understand the secrecy. Okay. We're gonna stop after this last little bit. This choice will set your path forward in stone. Meeting with the smith is the truest form, freedom. Meeting with the smith is the truest form most ever experience. To send you into this cosmic encounter with shackles is the foulest taboo. The truest freedom. I know, brain. We're gonna finish up after these sentences and say goodnight. Is the truest freedom most ever experience. To send you into this cosmic encounter with shackles is the foulest taboo. Zoe laughed at their serious expressions. It seems like this path you mention is the only way that we can return home. So, okay, cool. Okay, done. We're gonna save this, but we're gonna save it like a dat. Okay. Mr. Radio, I don't know how many chapters I did. It doesn't matter because it's not enough. Never enough. Never. That's how I feel about my life. About my chapters. So, hi, Matthias. But yeah. All right. That is it for the day. I know, right? So, I'll see you guys later.